just ask those questions anytime, and I'll see them. And okay, well, let's just welcome everyone to the Christmas version of my winter school. It's even better next week because that's like the day before New Year's Eve. So I got to wish you a very happy holiday time. So whether that be Christmas or whatever you celebrate. And I've lived in so many countries and diverse communities around the world. So I kind of know firsthand that it's not all about Christmas for everyone at this time of year. But strangely, everywhere I've lived, they always love decorated Christmas trees. Doesn't matter whether they celebrate Christmas, but they just love trees. And they also love presents. Everyone seems to give presents everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas or not, but that time of year. And I'm also very aware that a lot of people, this is a kind of happy, close time with friends and family. But for plenty of others, it's actually not. And it can be a really depressing and unhappy time of the year. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this winter school as well, because I wanted to like sprinkle some of my Gua Sha magic knowledge on those people that need it. And just keep going. I don't take a holiday during the Christmas period. I just keep going. It's just another day for me. So whether you're feeling festive or just avoiding everything the media shoves in your face, I'm very glad that you made it here, whether you're watching live or whether you're joining me later on. And today we're going to look at keeping that internal fire that's going, and keep it going inside you. So a quick announcement first. People have been asking me for quite a long time to have some other kind of structure with what I do and to kind of go deeper with the ecology, emotion, and Gua Sha framework. So next week, I'll be explaining a little bit more about the new diploma, which is going to come out next year, which is actually a 12-month qualification in ecology, emotion, Gua Sha, which is mostly done online, but there is a part which is live, which means people can join it from anywhere, and it's plenty of time. It's going to start in September next year, so plenty of time to, if you were considering studying even deeper. But basically, it's for people looking to like go deep into this, and and kind of improve people's practice in Gua Sha in a huge way. So I've got that coming up. So I'll talk about that next week. And I've got lots of new dates for live classes, which I've been negotiating, trying to work out where to go. And we're actually restructuring the whole system that I have. So it all makes sense next week. And one of the things actually, sometimes people get it, sometimes people don't get it. But in case it hasn't fully landed yet, and if this is your first video, then it wouldn't. But if you've been following me for a while, that the concept that ecology and motion is giving you is genuinely revolutionary in concept. So Gua Sha is the focus of everything. But it actually, everything I'm kind of building around it challenges convention in all its forms. So when you go online and you feel overwhelmed by all that bad news that constantly kind of coming at you, and you start to think, well, there's nothing you can do, remember that a big part of what ecology and motion represents is actually about restoring power to the powerless and creating kind of real, genuine change, one practitioner or one community at a time. And you're always very welcome to join me. And I'm not saying that about money or anything. It's about, you can join me without having to spend any money. It's about making transformation in many, many senses. And this is a theme that's pretty much in all of my stuff. And then, I was looking at some of my books, and then, if anyone's got, if you've got the Facebook, and if you look at the Facebook, and if you were to read the final paragraph of the introduction, if you look at the final paragraph of all of my books, the introductions, you're going to see, whoa, okay, that's what it's all about. I don't know if you've read that, but right, this one was about kind of a personal change, about changing how you see yourself, and that was the natural facelift. The natural facelift in the title is referring not only to the cosmetic idea of changes at the skin level, but equally at changing the face we show to the outside world, an external and internal facelift. In this way, it can help to lift the veil, which can often obscure the real you. So actually, when I talk about facelift with facial gua sha, I'm never talking really about the physical face. I'm talking about you as a person to kind of change who you are. And if the original book, if anyone's got that one, this one I wrote 20 years ago, and I was so surprised that this one was published. Because it was I'd never written a book before, and I just wrote it and I just sent it to publishers. This one, so this one has got a great last paragraph of the introduction, and I also reproduced it in this one, so you could read it again. And it's a good job because I can't really read the orange one. It's got a fine print, and I can't really read it. I got to put my glasses on to read that, but this one's okay. We got to come to the end of that section. So it's always at the end of the introduction. Here we are. I might have to put my glasses on. No, okay. The knowledge of the ancients is still as relevant today as it's always been, and when used correctly, it can transform lives. After all, true knowledge is power, and in this day and age, there's not enough of it about. And I included in this one. This one has a section about power to the people. And so if you actually read the stuff, you actually start to see really what this is all about. So it's not just a bunch of techniques. It's a lot deeper than that. But anyway, so today we're going to focus very much on one thing, and we're going to focus on tackling a presentation so common it's often dismissed as that's just the way I am. And there's chronic cold hands and feet. Maybe that's you who says that, or maybe it's other people who say that. But this is such a common thing, and people just say, "Well, that's just me. I've always had cold hands and feet," and so it's not actually something that has to be there. It's something that's there. There's a reason for it to be there. And I don't suffer from cold hands and cold feet, but of course, right, it's winter now, and as I'm sitting here, I've got cold fingers if I'm typing on my computer, and that's quite normal. And I make sure I've got a hot water bottle in bed because otherwise my feet are frozen. But for other people, it's a bit more chronic. Like my mother, she suffered from cold hands, and they would visibly change to go completely white. And that's a condition we're going to have a look at in a moment. And so of course, you guessed it, we aren't going to talk about wearing thicker socks or gloves. We're going to explore why this happens from both I can't even say Western medical perspective, and this fascinating world of ecology and motion. And I'm going to actually explain that there is no distinction really. And I'm going to explain, a simple sequence that you can do on yourself or, someone else to fire up that kind of inner heater inside you. So let's have a look. What's happening inside the body for cold hands and cold feet? So in Western medicine, cold hands and cold feet, they often see it as being caused by vasoconstriction. Now, you don't have to be cold for this to happen, but you can see this especially when you are cold. So your body's natural survival instinct is to, it basically pulls blood away from your extremities, and it kind of huddles around your vital organs to keep them warm. And so this is the basic idea of what's happening. But for many, this isn't a temporary survival reflex like in a cold place. It's a chronic state, and basically they live with this every single day. Now, you often see the extremes of this. Now, the extremes of this is when the manifestation of it is quite strong. Just like this is the case of my mother now. So she had Raynaud's phenomenon, or sometimes it's called Raynaud's syndrome. And that's pretty common. It affects 1 in 10 people, and most of those are women. And when someone has it because their fingers will change color. They'll go either white, sometimes even go blue, and then they'll go red and be quite hot afterwards. And it's a kind of process that it goes through. And so it involves a kind of vasospastic attack. So that, I'll explain what that is. And it's where the kind of digital arteries, the digital meaning the ones in the hand, they overreact. And it's kind of like a glitch in the thermostat. And our blood vessels have a kind of a pulse, there's a subtle rhythmic pulse regulated by this sympathetic nervous system. But in this kind of event, the smooth muscle, which the arterial walls, within the arterial walls, doesn't just constrict, which it's supposed to do, it's supposed to be doing this, it just shuts down completely. And so the vessel becomes so narrow that even a single blood cell can't pass through. And it creates a state which is called, ischemia, which is like a temporary lack of blood flow. But blood vessels don't exist in a vacuum. They're embedded in kind of facial sheaths. This is kind of surrounded by fascia. And so when the artery spasms, so it's going to go close like that, the surrounding connective tissue reacts to this kind of lack of heat and oxygen by tightening up. And this creates a kind of double tightness. So internally, the vessel wall is kind of seizing up like that. And then externally, the fascia, which is around it, is kind of shrinking. So it's a bit like a vacuum sealed plastic. Have you seen those things around stuff? And it goes like that. So that's really what's happening. But eventually, this is not permanent, or else, the hand will just die. And so this kind of the spasm, it breaks, and so the blood comes back into the hand and into the fingers, and then there's a process then called reactive hyperemia. Now, what happens there is the blood is rushing back into the fingers, and it becomes incredibly painful, and it's throbbing and tingling, and you've got pins and needles. And so that's on the extreme end of when cold hands. But there's another more in the extreme end as well, and that's hyperthyroidism. And this one really has a big effect on cold hands and cold feet. And the whole idea of hyperthyroidism is that there's a low thyroid function. It can drop, the basal metabolic rate can drop by like a half. Now, let me just explain a little bit about the basal metabolic rate. And that's basically the minimum amount of energy, like the same as you see on food, like in calories or kilojoules. And it's this energy the body requires to kind of maintain homeostasis. So that means, it's the engine running when nothing else is running, as when you're asleep, for example. It is the thing that beats your heart. It's the thing that expands your lungs and contracts your lungs. And it's the chemical work of every cell all the time. This is the thing that's kind of running it. And about 60-70% of the totally daily energy expenditure goes towards this idea of we call it BMR, so the basal metabolic rate. And so you think of BMR as like basically the body's an oven, and the BMR as the pilot light, the one that shouldn't go out. And when the light is really high, and the pipes around in the oven, which in other words are the blood vessels, they stay warm and dilated. But when it's low, the pilot light is barely flickering, and the system starts to freeze from basically from the outside inwards. So that's really what's happening with the thyroid. So the thyroid gland acts as the master regulator of this kind of pilot light, and it produces hormones that tell the mitochondria in your cells how fast to work. And so what happens is you have a high BMR, which is a hyperthyroid, and that's the oven is overactive, and you feel hot and sweaty. And you've got a low BMR, which is hypothyroid, and the oven is like sluggish, and the body doesn't generate enough waste heat from the cellular processes, and forcing it to constrict the peripheral blood vessels. This is the problem, to conserve what little warmth there is in the core of your body. And so this is again an issue of the blood vessels into the fingers. So when someone has a low BMR, they aren't just cold; they lack the metabolic pressure to push all of the blood to the fingertips, and it's basically an underpowered pump. But you've also got other things which are going to affect these. So one of them is anemia. So anyone who's anemic, their low hemoglobin means, it's kind of like it's a road, it's like a motorway or a freeway, and it's wide open. There's nothing constricting it, but the trucks which are supposed to be full of goods, they're just completely empty, and they're all driving down the road. So there's not enough oxygen to generate the heat. And then another big issue a lot of people take is beta blockers. So normally our blood vessels are controlled by two opposing signals from the sympathetic nervous system. And for anyone who knows a little bit about ecology and motion or read any of my books, you'll know this is Chinese medicine. This is the universal motion of everything, which is termed yin and yang, which is expansion and contraction. So it's in the sympathetic nervous system. So you've got the alpha receptors and the beta receptors. The alpha receptors, they're the ones that kind of tell the body to constrict or contract, which is the kind of yin action of the body. And the beta receptors give you the opposite. They say dilate, get bigger, to expand, which of course is the yang universal motion. So when you take a beta blocker for blood pressure or anxiety, the medication, it successfully mutes the expand signal. But it usually leaves the alpha receptors, which is the contract signal, untouched, and it's fully active. And so because this, the expand signal is blocked and the contract signal isn't, so it becomes the dominant motion in the system. And so basically what happens is the blood vessels are essentially left in a state of unopposed constriction. So even if you're in a warm room, your vessels are receiving a chemical command to stay shut, leading to chronically icy hands and feet. As you've already kind of worked out, that the things I was explaining just in Western medicine, they're actually, they're identical in the idea about how the ancient Chinese saw the body. And when you look through the lens of nature, as the classical Chinese writers of the Huangdi Neijing, which is the book from 2,000 years ago, which kind of gives us the foundation of Chinese medicine. So this is what they did. So it's all talking about the same motions. And I often argue that there's no Western medicine, there's no Chinese medicine. They're both interpretations of the natural world. And if you go into the natural world, you see both. And you don't need to have this distinction. So in ecology and motion, we view the body as a thriving landscape. So we can think in a very basic level. We can think of ourselves as trees. Your feet are the roots, your limbs are the trunk, and your hands are the leaves, which is actually a pretty accurate way that the ancient Chinese saw the body. So when the leaves, they wither and they turn cold, there are two primary ecological disruptions that's going to cause this. So one of them is something is weak. There's a weakness. So this might be the nutrients, minerals, and moisture that the tree needs isn't being pumped around because there's just not enough of them. And this, if we look at another analogy, which is the lush valley, with a river meandering down the landscape. So we can see that, well, that is actually what the Chinese were talking about with the body. So the blood vessel is the river, and the landscape is all of your tissue and your muscles. And what would happen is the body calculates that it doesn't have enough fluid to irrigate the entire landscape. And to survive, it pulls the water back from the outer canals to keep the central reservoir full. So the actual river will be full, but the landscape around it won't be. And so this is basically the idea of weakness. Not just, actually, that's the idea of weakness in general, not just of cold hands and cold feet. And now the other thing is obstruction. That's one of the big causes of this process. And this is when there's plenty of water, but it's the infrastructure is totally compromised. So think about the ecosystem of the body as an ecosystem in nature. If there's like a log jam in a river, everything becomes blocked. And what kind of things might cause this logjam? What will compromise the infrastructure? And you make a list of how you become ill. You might have too much stress. There might be tension in your muscles somewhere. You might have an emotional stress or strong emotions or traumatic emotions. You might have some kind of injury or an accident. And there might be pathogens which kind of get in your body, a bit like a cough and a cold and the flu, and they start causing trouble with the river systems. And actually, that's actually one of the most common ones. The log jams are often caused by these guest pathogens. This is what the terminology I use for things that come in from outside into the body, and they kind of get stuck in different places. For example, cold. Cold is a good example for you. I mean, how many times have you got cold and then afterwards you've got some pain? And it's actually the cold is kind of hanging around in the tissue. And cold is a physical contractor. When it penetrates your defensive perimeter, which is supposed to stop everything coming in, it causes the interstitial fluids to thicken and the fascia to shrink. And this is what cold does inside the body. And these pathogens of cold, they kind of flow around and then they just hang out in what's termed as the backwaters. And these are the microscopic places between muscle and skin where circulation is naturally slower. And this is where cold will kind of hang out there. And it's actually really painful. If you get cold, if you've got cold in your back, you're going to have a really nasty back pain. So the trapped climate acts like a physical barrier. So the blood is trying to reach the fingertips and it hits a wall of constricted frozen tissue. And because things are getting stuck. Where are they getting stuck? They're getting stuck at the big crossroads in the body. So where are the big crossroads? We already started talking about that in the week 1 and week 2. It's the neck and shoulders. That's a major crossroads. Also the hips and top of the legs. That's another major crossroads. And so if it gets stuck there, it's going to leave the core kind of hot and restless, and the extremities are just starved of warmth. And so, you've got to start looking at, well, hang on, let's have a look at these these areas, or crossroads, which perhaps have got obstruction in them. So when we look at some of them, let's look at the neck and the upper back, this area here, which is the thoracic outlet. So this is the primary transit zone for certain river systems. So the subclavian and the auxiliary arteries, which are, they're actually river systems in Chinese medicine, as well as the brachial plexus, which is the nerve bundle that kind of are coming around. And when someone carries chronic tension in the upper trapezius and scalene muscles, for example, there are plenty of other muscles, your shoulders are like hiked up to your ears, kind of more like this. And so this isn't just like uncomfortable, it's creating physical compression on these major vessels and the tissue and their nerves around the vessels. Kind of like, if you've got a hose and you step on the hose, it stops the pressure of the water. And so the same kind of thing would happen with the volume flow reaching the hand if everything's kind of stuck in this area. And this also will create a pressure backup. So heat stays trapped in maybe the head or the chest, while the arms and the hands, they're going to run a lot drier. So you can't warm the fingers if the main kind of valve at the neck is only partially open. You've got to like open it. So that's the basic idea of what we're going to do with Gua Sha. So what's the solution with Gua Sha, which is why you're all here? So we use Gua Sha, using Gua Sha in terms of this, not to kind of treat the muscle or do something superficial. We want to perform a form of tissue decompression. That's the main goal of what we want to do. So by scraping, for example, let's look at the neck. By scraping the lateral neck and the tops of the shoulders, we create a kind of shearing force that unglues the fascia from the underlying vessels. And this restores the interstitial space, effectively lifting remember the foot's on the hose, you're lifting the foot off the hose. So, once this dam is breached, the body's own pressure is often enough to flush the warmth all the way to the fingertips without ever touching the hand itself. So that's basically the theory of how you can actually treat something like this with Gua Sha. So if we look at a metaphor of a gardener, if a tree's branches are brittle, a gardener doesn't just kind of mist the leaves. They check the soil and they look at the trunk. And in practice, if you treat only the cold hands, which are the leaves, without clearing the body restriction, which is the trunk, the sap, which is the liquid inside the plant, will just get stuck again. So we've got to clear the path in the trunk, so the flow between the roots and the leaves becomes free. So that's basically what we're going to do. So let's talk a little bit about equipment. Just a moment. I got to get this right here. We have a problem with my feed. Okay, working now. Okay, so equipment. So how many people have you got this book? Don't worry, you don't have to have any of my books, it's fine. Okay, here's the cat. The cat is now decided, about the same position as last time. The cat has now decided it wants to go out the door. So just a moment. Okay, there we go. The life with cats. Especially life with 5 of them. Okay, I just lost my feed. Okay, now. Right, so in this book, I talk about equipment to use for Gua Sha. So I just want to make it really super clear to you that in terms of Gua Sha, what you should use. So when we're going to do the hands, we're going to do the feet, and we're also going to do the body. So the obvious thing is like, just get yourself a spoon. Don't worry about anything else. Here's a nice spoon here. Here's another spoon. Oh God, I got so many spoons sitting on my desk around here. And I can see like 10 spoons in different directions. So you just get yourself a spoon. It's one of the best tools because of the rounded edges, and it glides perfectly over the small bones of your hands and your feet, and also the body as well. So it's fine. So and remember, if you wanna get a tool, I don't mind what tool people have. It's absolutely fine. But there's a formula for a tool, and if you don't know the formula, it's in that book here, and it's T equals C plus A times H squared. That's my formula for how to choose a tool. If your tool comes out well in that formula, then that is your tool, right? And it's all about how it is to use it, and is it appropriate, and how happy that tool makes you, because that's the key to everything: happiness. Just remember, safety first. Don't scrape over the things I told you in the other videos: the broken skin, varicose veins, and if you've got a blood clotting disorder, be careful, and use lubrication if you're going to actually do it on your skin. Any lubrication is fine as long as it's comfortable for your skin. And I'm thinking, if it's hands and feet, you might be wanted to use things which are kind of really warm, like tiger balm, or what else? I can't remember the other things I use with menthol in them. Those kinds of things, they'll be fine to use in the hands and feet. But to watch out touching your eye, because I always touch my eyes when I use that, and then I'm kind of 5 minutes pushing water into my eyes to try and get rid of it. So let's look at treatment. So we have to clear the proximal blockages before treating the distal symptoms, right? So before we come to the hands and feet, you've got to deal with the rest. So if we draw a line here, kind of there, so all of this stuff that we talked about in video 1, video 2, you've got to make sure that there's nothing there which is really stuck. So we're talking the back, and actually scraping downwards alongside the spine, not actually on the spine, although that would be fine, but either side of the spine, but right next to it, where the sympathetic chain ganglia are, and this is where the peripheral nerves come in to the side, into coming towards the back of the spine. So by scraping these areas, you're essentially telling the nervous system to kind of like calm down, to stand down. Switching the body from a kind of core protection survival mode back to the kind of chilled mode. And so this is also the bladder river system, which is this whole wonderful system which is coming from the side of your eyes and coming all the way down your back. And it's really, really important to do. And now another one is the neck. You've got to make sure, especially the sides. Now, if you remember the sides, that's the gallbladder river system. And it's like anywhere on the side, how to work out where's the gallbladder. Is it on the side? And if you say yes, and then that's the gallbladder. So it's really simple. Basically, the scalene muscles are there too. And the whole idea of this is to kind of unkink the neurovascular bundles, kind of feeding the arms, which are actually getting stuck by the constriction in the fascia in the neck area. And then, of course, the shoulders, and scraping kind of there are two big river systems over here. There's the large intestine, which is right in the middle, coming down the middle deltoid here, and the triple bone coming towards the back, and the clearing the shoulder wherever is stuck, and this is you're clearing kind of muscular dam of the shoulder and allowing things to go up and down the arm. And once the trunk is clear, you can then move on to the leaves. And so the leaves being your hands. And so you start off. I mean, the logical thing is to start off with the palm, and the logical direction is to go up that direction. So you're going to head towards tips of the fingers. I'm going to be talking about the directions next week. But this is the natural circulation system of the body. It's what the body likes. It's going to be coming up that direction here. Now, scraping up towards the fingers. I mean, you can kind of really dig in, especially in that soft tissue of the palm here, and just below. So we've got the metacarpals here. There are 5 of them, but just below the top part here, you can dig in there and you can find crunchy spots. And if you understand what crunchy spots is, you're gonna think, what is that strange thing that I've got just under there? And you're gonna the sound is also like really weird as well. You're like, what is that? So this is the sound of uric acid crystals. And lots of people ask me this when I'm teaching. And the fascia is also adheres to the fascia. It's supposed to dissolve in the blood. It's perfectly natural to have uric acid. It dissolves in the blood and it passes through the kidneys and it leaves the body. But here it gets kind of snagged in the fascial web, and that's what you're really feeling there. But it's not a case of I want to get rid of these right now. You want to increase the motion in this area in order for the body to gradually take it away. So it's not about going as hard as you can to remove them. This is not how Gua Sha works. It's not about removing stuff instantly like that. The body will adjust itself and will naturally process the problems that are stuck here. So once you've worked on the lower part, you want to come on the fingers. So that means coming up the inside, the front, and so the lateral, the medial side, and the front of the fingers, and basically coming all the way up to the tips of the fingers. And you're basically really stimulating the digital arteries and to try and stop that kind of, remember the vasospastic clamping. So you're trying to really help that. So you're going to come all the way up to each finger, and you can spend as long as you like on here. But you're not looking for Sha. You're not looking for strength. You're looking for increasing blood circulation. So it doesn't have to be really hard. So make sure you include your thumb. So once you've done here, you can then do on the back of the hand. But this time we're going to come this direction. We're going to come from the fingers towards the wrist. And again, this is the natural circulation pattern of the hand. I'll talk about that next week and give you the reason why. And so it's the fingers to the wrist. So you can come down this nice ligament, which is at the back of every finger. Choose your finger, and then you're going to scrape down. So again, we're not looking for Sha. We're not looking to create an instant change in the shape of muscles. We're just increasing the circulation patterns of each of the fingers. So remember, come to the sides again when you're coming down, even though you already did it going up, but do the same thing. And then come to the back of the hand, and then you can either come straight down the back of the hand, which sounds really crunchy, or if that is a little bit too sore, or if there's not much tissue here and they're just bones, you can change the angle of the tool and just scrape right down and in between the bones. That will be fine too. And this side, you're actually mimicking the venous and lymphatic return to the body. But Gua Sha is not about that, but we can talk about lymphatic system and venous system. So this side would actually be mimicking what's going on, but this side wouldn't actually be that correct. So that's the hand. So it's basically very, very similar for the feet. So when you're treating cold feet, you've got to like release first of all the hips. So and what often happens is it's the deep muscles. So the piriformis and the deep gluteal muscles, if they're really tight, they act like a kind of heavy clamp on the neurovascular kind of bundle. And you can scrape your feet all day, and they just won't warm up because the blood can't reach the toes. So, you might wonder how a tool on the skin affects a muscle, but like a deep muscle like the piriformis, because you can't touch it with the Gua Sha tool because it's deep. So we aren't physically digging that deep. Instead, we're using the nervous system and the fascia as a bridge. So by scraping the skin over the area, we send a neurological signal that tells those deep clamped muscles to relax. And the piriformis is deep, but wrapped in the same continuous web of deep fascia that connects to the more superficial layers of the glutes. So tension release on the surface is transmitted downwards, and this is kind of how the structure works. So it's kind of like a river flow. As the superficial blood flow increases, it reduces the congestive pressure in the area, allowing the deep arterial flow to travel south with less resistance. So basically, you're going to release the gallbladder river system is the side. Remember, it's always the sides, the side of your hip. That's often the one that needs releasing. And it's also quite painful, and also the buttock area as well. So the kind of lower back to the buttocks and the sides of the hips, they really need work, and it can be painful. And Sha can appear in these areas. So this is where Sha will be fine. Now, if you're doing it on yourself, then you've got a lot more freedom than if you're doing it somewhere else, because in terms of pain, you can inflict pain on yourself, no problem. But it's best not to inflict pain on other people. Again, this is not about removing tension in these areas. It's about bringing circulation back. So there might be Sha that appears, but maybe not, and it's not about, I'm going to spend like 5 minutes on this one place and I'm trying to look for Sha. It's not about that. And that would be a mistake, and that could cause a bruise. It's just if you feel constriction, so if you feel areas of the tissue which is kind of really tight, just help the motion, and the body will decide whether or not it's okay to release them. Because remember, these tight areas, they might be being held somewhere else, and so you might be spending ages on this one area, and it's the wrong area to actually to focus on, because it's being held somewhere else, in another kind of what the ancient Chinese call binding points. The binding points is the places where things kind of overlap, and sometimes they're the ones that need treatment, not the place you actually feel it. So when you finally get to, you come down the legs. I'm going to explain to you about the legs actually next week, so that's why I'm kind of flipping over this one a little bit quick. But basically, you want to come down your legs and go down the outside of your legs and come up the inside of your legs. Again, next week we'll deal with that for you. But then when you come to the feet, so I'm not going to present my feet to you, because that wouldn't be great for viewing pleasure. So imagine this is the foot. So you're going to scrape the same principle from the sole. So you're going to go from the heel here to the ball, up this way. And it's exactly the same principle as the hand, no different in what we're doing. And mechanically, you're stretching the plantar fascia. And this is a thick band of tissue, which often becomes contracted and cold in people with poor circulation. So, and you're actually, by doing this, you're actually treating the roots of the body. This is where the kidney comes from, at the bottom of your foot. And if that was a little toe, this is where it starts on the little toe, comes across there. So it's a really important area to work on, to warm up. So you're going to come up that way. You're going to basically scrape up. You're going to come exactly the same. You're going to come up with each individual toe in exactly the same way that I already mentioned. And then you're also going to make sure you're going to do the ankle. So on the ankle, you've got these two ankle bones, one on the inside, one on the outside. These are called the lateral and medial malleolus. And so the actual bone itself is quite painful to do, but you're fine to do it. But around the bone, at the heel of the foot, that's an area coming down into the foot. That's a great area to work on, and it can really take a lot of kind of scraping, because we don't have a lot of nerves in that area. But again, we're not looking for Sha at all. And the last bit will be the top of the foot. Now, the top of the foot, we're actually going to go. We're actually heading in the same way we did really with the sole of the foot. We're going to head that way. And so remember, it's different from the hand, because in the hand we went up here and then we went down. But on the foot, with the top of the hand, so the back of the hand, the back of the foot, we're actually going the opposite way. We're heading towards the feet. And again, that's all about the natural circulation patterns, which again, I'm going to explain that next week. Exactly the same principles with the top of the foot. Heading down. This part is really bony, and you just watch out for that. And usually there's enough tissue around the kind of where the knuckles are, but at the bottom of on the foot. And then you go to the sides and the top of the toes, coming towards the end. And something that's really, really useful in combination with doing this, and I don't know if you guys have got this book. Let's get this one out. Are you familiar with that one? This one's Self-Healing with Chinese Medicine. And yeah, this one's quite a big book. This actually spent me quite a long time to write this book. This one I talk about ginger foot soak. And also, actually, there's a whole bunch of foot soaks. I put a whole load of foot soaks in there. And we used to use foot soaks in my clinic in North Africa. We used to have a foot soak room where we used to have like 5 chairs with buckets, and people used to sit there and they used to kind of look at each other and chat, and they had their feet in the foot soak. So actually a really good one. There are many different types, but a ginger foot soak is really good. So you boil sliced ginger to create a kind of decoction. That's the right word, isn't it? And you cool it, of course, to make it safe. And you soak for 15 minutes, either before Gua Sha, after Gua Sha, or you're quite free. But it's actually really good to do before, because the ginger acts as a kind of vasodilator and a kind of topical stimulant. It kind of opens those gates so your toe can move the kind of blockage or stagnation. So that's basically it. So cold hands and feet are kind of the smoke signaling a fire that has gone out in the kind of the place that shouldn't be blocked. And by restoring motion to the tissue, you're kind of warm. You're not just warming the skin, you're re-establishing the flow of the entire ecosystem. Now, also remember, so consistency is better than intensity. So it's not about like doing a lot. It's about doing it regularly. So if you're doing this kind of gentle warming sequence 3 times a week, it's going to yield far better results than one marathon session once a month. Okay, so that's enough of me talking, and let me throw it open to you if you have any questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a look at some of my questions here. Something that's relevant in one of the questions that was asked before is, can Gua Sha help with nerve issues like carpal tunnel or sciatica? This is kind of based on the same principles. And it was yes, but it's not about treating a nerve directly. It's about treating the container of the nerve. So one fascia or muscles like the piriformis in the hip, and then when they become tight, they physically compress the nerve, and Gua Sha creates space through kind of decompression of the fascia by lifting the pressure off the kind of neurovascular bundle, and the nerve can breathe. So it's not actually in often cases it's not connected with a nerve. Something else is, and your sensation is the nerve, but the actual cause of it is not neurological. It's actually something else happening. And this is Chinese medicine, and so we can put words to these things as different river systems are doing this. Okay, so we have a question, Edith. Could you do the ginger concoction on the neck? Ah, you mean like a compress? Yeah, you could use a compress, but you can probably put your head in the in the foot soak, because you wouldn't survive that one. I think that would be a one-way trip, putting your head in the foot soak. But I would imagine a compress like that would be absolutely fine, or any kind of heat would be great on the neck. But in terms of foot soaks, they're so underrated, foot soaks, in that I mean, we used to use a foot soak with herbs in our clinic, but it wasn't to warm the feet. It was so that the herbal concoction that we had could come into the circulation system and could make changes in the chest area and in the upper body area. And the feet was the way it came in. So it's very, very underrated. So I thoroughly recommend anyone to use, in combination with Gua Sha, to use foot soaks, but also foot soaks are hand soaks. So whatever you put your feet in, you can also put your hand in as well. Hands in, probably you need a different kind of container. So using some kind of herbal concoction, whatever it might be, nothing terribly complicated. And if you didn't, just hot water would be fine. Just putting your hands in there regularly in combination. Remember, in combination with a lot of other stuff, the things I'm talking about doing Gua Sha. If you just did that, it's not enough, remember, because the problem isn't actually the hands and the feet, it's the body. Okay, do you guys got any more questions? Last chance. Well, okay, next week is the last one of the year. And so next week I'm going to be talking about the whole body. And so we'll talk about the directions and all things like that, about how you can protect your health, really, using your whole body, using a sequence that you can use. And I'd like to wish you all very happy holiday season. And I'm going to see you before the new year, but I'll offer you a healthy and flowing new year as well. So thank you very much for turning up. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm reading all your comments. Thank you.